Good morning.
Hi there. Do I need to change my, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Do you see me in just a little piece or do I need to change my setup?
Everybody will see however they have it. I can see you fine.
Okay, because on my little square on my screen, I'm just seeing like a portion of me like vertically.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm seeing too.
Let me do this then. Let's do a little recalibration. Which is the thing.
There you go.
Oh, it's so wide though, and it's gonna bring in all the light.
It's all good. You're not shadowed.
Okay, give me just a second.
Beautiful painting behind you.
Oh, thank you. I did that in my little outbreak of creativity last year or two ago.
You did that. Gorgeous.
Thanks. Let me do a little movement here. I'm assuming there's not too much going on. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good.
Here we are.
I'm so glad we got a break in the heat. This is the perfect weather for me.
It's gonna be nice for like at least a week or something, no?
Yeah. Yeah.
How come that's doing that? That's strange.
So with this change in the time, I know you were on a few of the early ones. With this change in the time that we did, we've seen the audience drop pretty significantly because we had got either other Zooms going on or whatever, but we are posting them on YouTube and Facebook.
Are you recording all of them?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's not working either. I don't know. I might go back to my vertical at this point.
Is it not balancing?
Yeah, it's not bouncing. I do it. I only use my iPad here, and for some reason
I didn't get that.
Siri likes it too. Yeah, and it's not high enough. I like your angle on yours. Does yours? Are you on a laptop or what are you using?
I am on a laptop, but my webcam is a USB webcam. I figured this out last week.
Like separate.
Yeah, I could do that and really freak everybody out for the whole hour.
Like what I'm doing with you right now. Like earthquake land. It's a land of.
We felt it yesterday. Did you feel it?
No, I think we were in the car at the time. You know how that is?
It was the shortest one I've ever felt. I was in the kitchen. Gail was on the couch, and it was just like, boom, done.
That's what I've normally experienced here, this kind of jolt-like sensation.
Yeah.
And I know my friends in Italy got one last night.
Oh boy.
That woke them up in the morning. This is ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to go back to my old way because.
And that would be fine. As long as it sits still. I'm getting a little seasick.
Yeah, exactly. Don't look for a minute. Put you through calisthenics. So are you off completely during the weekend or?
Yeah, I took a couple business calls, but for the most part, I did a lot of yard work this weekend and then had a lot of time with my mom yesterday. So it was good.
Is she nearby?
Yeah, she's only about 15 minutes away. And eventually someday we'll finish the second house on this property for her.
Oh, okay. That's a recent move, like a year or two, right?
Yeah, we bought this in September of 18 and spent September through January doing projects so we could inhabit, and we moved in January.
And where are you physically? I know you're east.
East Hamul. So, yeah. It's not bad. And thank you. I'm so glad we connected on the time.
Yeah.
And you had it available.
Yes, exactly.
What we've been finding is might get 25 to 30 people. Right now we're at 13. Let's see who's here this morning. And I would love to see some more participation. So feel free, everybody who's here, to unmute yourself or type chats in. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Bruce, other than to say we've known each other a long time. It feels like
yeah,
2 or 3 different lifetimes just in how things change.
On that level, yeah.
Yeah.
On this plane, like 2000, I want to say 2003 or 4 comes to mind.
Probably 2003. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm Bruce Descoteaux. Nice to meet all of you virtually here in this surreal world we're in.
So we had a great conversation several weeks ago, and I got to learn a little bit about your history, which I found so fascinating. And I thought maybe we should start there.
Okay.
How long ago did you have the travel business?
So I was in travel before real estate. I traveled for like 10 years. And that's kind of like around, I want to say 98, 99, around there, something like that.
Okay. And then you have had your time in real estate, and you
right.
somewhat recently got back to the travel business, but with a different angle.
Twist. Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that to everybody here the way you explained it to me a few weeks ago?
I forget exactly how I explained it to you, but like there was this combination. Give me a few words. I mean, it was a combination for me of a couple of different things. After real estate, I decided to go for a period of time up into San Francisco, and I was certified as a coach, life coach, executive coach. And at the end of that period, they asked us to do a 5-year plan on what we wanted to do with our coaching. And having traveled a lot, having taken groups like 40 people, 30 people at a time all over the world for 10 years, I really saw that people's the opportunity when we disconnect, and this really connects to what we're in right now, when we take the opportunity to truly disconnect as much as we can. And when you if you've had the opportunity to take a trip a little bit further to go to a foreign country rather than just a weekend trip, you allow yourself to leave all the connections that you really don't even understand you have behind. You unplug, you check out a bit more than you would on a short trip. And so people, I would notice, go through these leaps of evolution, development, and come to me during a trip and say, this trip has changed my life. And they really couldn't necessarily put a finger on it. And for me, what I observed, it was like this out-of-body spiritual experience to some degree, where because they left all of their routine at home, unplugged, and then plugged into a new place, they saw their life open up anew. All of these things that were kind of like in the background of their consciousness, their mind, they're somehow connected to their intuition, got stimulated, and they wanted to go home with a new plan. And so I think one of the benefits, the strongest benefits we can get from this moment, now that we're in where people are taking this quarantine time, is to look at everything that you're doing new and see how that presents an opportunity. Because every day, I think I've spoken with a lot of friends during this period, it's like either your mind is going down a tunnel in a darker way, or it's opening up and flourishing as a plant flourishes in another way, and seeing opportunity. So the travel business, and my plan was to take people on a transformational journey, because I knew that when you go on a trip, it's this natural place where you can unplug and try new things. And when you're, typically people go on a trip because they love to travel. It's not like you're forcing somebody and saying, I'm going to take you on a trip to Paris. And you're like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. There are some people who like are homebodies, but the vast majority of people are like, would want to have more vacation time than more money, as the studies go. And I think most people have heard of that. It's like, when they're given an opportunity, do you want more money or do you want more vacation time from your job? And people are like, oh, just give me some more time so I can like live life. And so
let me pause there for a second and just bring something in, because that's interesting. And I think the vast majority of people would have, if their needs are met, right?
Right, sure.
Would much rather have time back. And a lot of us do love to travel. There's neuroplasticity, right? And when every single day of our lives, when we are in just our repetitive norm, 95% of what we do is automatic.
Right.
And it takes getting this pause, perhaps, or travel to really take us out of that repetitive environment. And all of our brains, neuroplasticity never ends. So we have the ability to change and choose new. But when we're just in our pattern, it's really unlikely.
Right.
So when you were describing that to me, that you've got these trips and you notice people would really open up, you are right. We have that same opportunity now. Getting back to the travel, since that has been such a big part of your life, what have you been able to take from those travel experiences to help you as we've been in this time of not? And by the way, so everybody knows, he's down in Mexico. He lives in Mexico.
Yeah, so not too far in San Diego, from San Diego, but yeah, I'm in Mexico now.
But our border's closed. You can't even come stateside right now, right?
No, I can. It's closed to people who are not U.S. citizens, but as a U.S. citizen, I can go back and forth.
All right.
Yeah.
So what have you been able to take from those experiences that's helping you through this?
Yeah, great question. See opportunity everywhere you can, in the new. So if you can reflect and check out what new things, and sometimes they're subtle, but see what new things you've done and watch your inner critic and celebrate the good ones, and not, go on a bashing spree of it's always natural to want to eat a little bit more when you have some downtime or go on vacation. But to see, where there's opportunity in every new thing you've done. So if you've had more space to sit still in the morning, what's coming to you through your intuition when you sit still in the morning? If you've tended to your garden, and it could be your real estate garden or your physical garden, what are you downloading from that? What are you perceiving from that? Can you trust your one of the big ones is, can you trust your gut intuition more and more through this phase? Because when there's a storm going on and you're busy doing the automatic life, you're working from circumstantial aspects outside of you. When you have to be quiet and listen to your wisdom, which most people don't want to face, and why a lot of people have difficulty with this, their intuition shows up. And if the good voice comes up, you have access to every answer you want. I get kind of goosebumps when I say it. And if you trust your good voice and intuition, you'll get every guidance you need. Despite the circumstances that are happening around you.
Yeah.
Because it'll show you opportunity everywhere that couldn't exist before this happened, that now can exist. So yeah, it's going to look different. So a little bit of trust has to come into this. So that's the next piece probably, is there's intuition and then meets trust, because trust then says, okay, whatever presents itself is new to me. Most people go to fear in the new experience. If you go to trust in the new experience, then the answers come through, opening opportunity. It may seem abstract. What I'm saying can seem abstract at first, but if you begin to practice it, you will begin to see subtle benefits. Because the goal of this always is to see what's the new benefit, what's the new opportunity, not where's the negative going to pop up, or what am I going to worry about.
Well, and I think that the longer this goes, I think, let's say the first couple of weeks, I think people took like a forced vacation, right?
Yeah.
So mentally, not much change. Then we got to a period of time where fear may have taken over, because we're going, oh my gosh, nothing is going to be the same. Everything that I knew, every way I built my business or whatever, it has to shift. And that typically will cause fear. but then give it another couple weeks and we can, I'm going to say, get comfortable with the fear, because that's my process. I always go through the, let me play this out to the worst case scenario, make peace with that, and then I can get creative.
Right.
And so now, I mean, none of us wanted to be stuck home for 50, 60, 70 days. And yet maybe that's what had to happen so that we can get to that place of being creative and open.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you for highlighting those 3 phases, because if you can just get comfortable in that, that's the cement foundation for any other thing you want to do in your life, because it's a conquering of fear.
Yeah.
You know, and some people are go-getters and they don't even see the fear, they just go get it. So if that's your case, well then you're already on to the next thing. But if you're, you know, it's I don't mean to sound cheesy when I say always look for the benefit, because I'm not poo-pooing that the other stuff that's happening or denying that the other stuff is happening. I'm just saying, when all that's happening, where will you direct your attention?
Yeah.
You know, and how will you meet it? Will you meet it or not meet it? And what will you do with your own development as an opportunity, because this time has been imposed and it's a new experience? And so when you talk about those 3 phases, if you can just observe those and solidify those, you know, this kind of vacation, then meets fear, then meets, okay, comfort zone, then all kinds of things can open up. And that's what's imposed on us. Maybe that's what needed to happen in order for us to break through to the next.
Well, and you alluded there, but actually you said it outright. We have choice in this, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people going around saying we don't, or the you know, the liberties are being taken. The whole mask argument, it's crazy. Had a conversation this morning about it.
The whole what movement?
The people who don't want to be told to wear masks.
Oh, the no masks. Yeah, the masks. Yeah.
You know, don't take my liberty or my choice away. But we have choices to make. And the reality is there's going to be a lot of people who do just stay frozen. Right. And there's going to be, hopefully, the 29 people on this call that aren't frozen, who can find the courage in the unknown and choose, really create. I asked a question on Facebook last week. If you're in an industry that isn't going to exist ever again in the way it was, and you were in a place where you could choose to do anything different, what would you do? I could not believe the number of people who commented. And my only thought was, well, why aren't you doing that?
Yeah.
If you have that much clarity on what you would do if you could, go do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't mean to, right. Well, that's the nature of, you know, the gift of this moment, right? That's what was provoked by this, you know, there's the proof in the pudding. That's what you provoked in the quarantine and this pause we're having. And it, you know, so then you go to, well, will you do it? And what will you do? And how will you do it? Will you take one comfortable step rather than see the whole mountain and move towards that? And what I want to add to that is, in the doing of that next thing, people often kind of self-sabotage or shut it down. You can do things both. You can do both. It doesn't mean you deny everything that you've done. It doesn't mean you reject your past. It doesn't mean you drop everything. It means, what new thing do I add to my life that brings me more fully into the experience of life? It doesn't mean I drop all what I've been doing, you know, and then build upon that.
And you speak to that from experience, right? I mean, that's what essentially you did, getting back into the travel game.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You know, it was an evolution. I couldn't have done that without my real estate career, you know, and I couldn't have done that without, you know, you had, you know, introduced this as a spiritual part, and you know, on Facebook, when you do your invite for these meetings on Facebook, you know, that the whole spiritual part, and spirituality can mean, I'm of the belief that spirituality can mean many, many things to many people, you know, and you have your own individual package, and you bring whatever your connection is to higher wisdom to the party, you know, and integrate that. So it's a building rather than a kind of ending of one and you know, a complete leap into the next. Sometimes it can be a complete leap, but you know, that's for each individual to decide how they want to handle it. You know, some people can drop one career and start anew, but other people can add or.
Well, and I think that the important thing the important thing you're saying there, it doesn't have to be an either or, right? It can be a both and if you choose it to be. Would you, I was so fascinated when you were telling me about your journey on foot across, and I forgot the name of the trip, but
the Camino de Santiago, which is the trek across from France to Spain. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. What's your question?
Yeah. Could you tell the group about that, the significance of it, and then what you learned, how long it took?
Yeah. So some of you may have heard about the Camino. There was a movie, I don't know, it was in the 80s called The Way with I don't know if it was Michael Douglas or something like that. And also Shirley MacLaine had a book on it. And there are other famous poets that have gone on this journey. So a few years back in 2016, I said, I'm taking this moment in my life. It was like a quarantine, moment where you said, I'm going to put my life on pause and allow myself to take time and to basically what it comes down to is recalibrate your soul. I love the expression recalibrate your soul. It's those moments in life where either by choice, like when you want to make a change in your life, or imposed like a quarantine like we're in now, where you say, I need to go in a little bit and find out what's calling me and what that has to reveal from inside rather than being bombarded by all this information we have from circumstance and situation and outside stuff. So I took a month, and it was actually like 36 days, and I walked 500 miles across from France, from the southwesternmost corner of France all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. So that means across all of northern Spain, above Portugal until the Atlantic Ocean. And silence, I guess, best describes it. It just, there are all words and no words, but it's this moment where you have the opportunity to, the metaphor that came to me all the time was this. Imagine your desk or something that you have at home. Maybe it's a kitchen table or something where it's just got everything on it, your table has fruit and it has all kinds of stuff on it. You have papers maybe on your desk, or you have your mug or your cup or your lamp. And you take this moment and you go like this to the whole thing, like a movie, go. And you just clear the whole slate clean. And you say, really, it's a passive thing that happens, but you see what can happen when that slate is clean and everything then has the opportunity with that new space to flow in. And so all kinds of things flow in. You get this, intuitive hit like you've never had before. Intuition is another thing. I don't know if you've ever had interviews on intuition, but I mentioned it again and again because that's the thing I think that people can rely mostly upon in themselves. Either they go to doubt or they go to their wisdom of intuition. And if I can say one thing that can come from this meeting today is that you trust your gut and get to know it as your best friend. And on that walk, it showed up for me again and again and again. All the things that I doubted in my life got validated and said on the opposite end and said, go this direction. Your doubt is not serving you. Whether it was a new turn, a new way I had to go on that path that day, crossing the Pyrenees Mountains from France over to Spain. And I was like, do I go left? Do I go right here? It was like, trust your gut and just go. And so that came up again and again and again. And the transformation has many different levels. For each person, it's going to be different. And so the expression that comes up on the Camino is, it meets you where you're at, and takes you where you need to go. The Camino, another thing is the Camino provides. And for those that really don't know about the Camino is this path in the sand. It's a path that runs 500 miles. And if you do it like, an average pilgrim, you walk about, I want to say 12 to 18 miles a day. So it would be like for those of you in San Diego, or you can figure it out for wherever you are across the country or the world. It's like, from San Diego, it'd be like walking from downtown San Diego to Tijuana, every day. And over the course of about 36 days, I walked 500 miles, and you meet people from all over the world.
Are there a lot of people doing it, Bruce? I mean, are you shoulder to shoulder on a path with people, or is it pretty solitary?
It depends on the time of the year, the time of the day that you walk. You can make it
really what you want? That's a typical question that comes up. But if you get up really early, you're going to have a ton of people. If you get up maybe an hour later, you can feel like you're the only one on the path. But there are a lot of people that do it because, and you know, it speaks to the need that people have to do their own kind of inner journey. People do it for spiritual reasons. I don't have any longer really this kind of classic spiritual, religious kind of call to it. For me, my spirituality has been an explorer spirituality. I grew up Catholic. I studied religious science, not Scientology, religious science. I've followed Paramahansa Yogananda and self-realization, who brought yoga to the Western world. And for me, it was kind of like, okay, what next will be revealed in the greatness of infinite consciousness through this? Not that I had to follow one of those while I was walking it. And when you open yourself up that way, then anything that needs to come to you comes to you in perfect order through the right people, places, and events. And it just people show up to, you know.
So funny. I knew I was going to flash this book, and I'll put it in the comments too. But
yeah,
have you read that one?
No, you just suggested it when we first started doing these
good.
meetings.
And it talks about the quantum physics behind spirituality and how quantum physicists are proving that we are all interconnected.
Right. I love quantum physics because for those who are not, and I really honor those who don't believe in I happen to be, in my own way, deeply spiritual. And might not appear like that to anyone else, but I also honor those who are not spiritual at all. And if they need to be scientific, then go study quantum physics, because that's the scientific version of spirituality, you know? And so, you know, that's my take on it. Maybe other people may see it different, and I honor that. But, wherever you are in your path, everybody watching, you know, what is calling to you now that taps into the all that will provide you what you need for this moment, if that makes sense, you know?
So in this quarantine time, what are you finding yourself doing? What is your process? Do you have an intentional process?
So I do have a practice. I think that's another gift that people, if they don't have a practice, to begin a practice and do it in a doable step. So if it's something new, it must be attractive enough to do. So, you know, again, don't see a whole new mountain or see this as this big, you know, task to do it in whatever little way. Creativity came up to me huge at the beginning. I love to cook. I cook every day. I studied cooking in Italy. I used to live in Italy. And I just said, you know, this is the one thing I can control and be serving at this moment in time, and the time and the space is there to do it. So I started to cook all these things like crazy, and I love to eat. And so I've gained my 5 pounds just like other people. And now,
5?
I gained 5 pounds. And then you've
got 15 to go.
The COVID-19, right? So I started to walk as a result more, because, you know, my body started to shut down. And I gave myself permission to walk at, you know, times of the day where there weren't a lot of people, and just, you know, move it, get it done, because my body spoke up that way too. It's like, you know, you're getting sore in places you've never been sore before. So I've been creative. I spent, you know, I call it a meditation, and I like to be very flexible with the word meditation. Like, some people need to sit and just be still, beautiful. I've done that many times on Zoom conferences, just like we're doing now. I do that regularly, twice a week. But my meditation that's natural and doable is to get in my garden in the morning immediately. And I tend to my garden. So I water what needs to be watered. I sweep the patio. I look at the flowers. I listen to what they say, as cheesy as that may sound. You know, I put my feet in the grass and I get grounded. I have this little patch of grass. I get grounded. I'm really an earthy type person, and that works for me. If you're not a grounded person and you need to be flying, you know, then fine. Like, I think what's most important for these kind of meetings is, what is it that's going to apply to you? What seed of wisdom do you take and apply to you? Because my groundedness might not be that the person who's listening to answer. It might be something else. It might mean they need to be on the phone with somebody all the time.
What I also hear is you've gotten clarity on what it is. And I know from coaching people that sometimes what their intuition tells them they need, they judge. I go, well,
Totally.
that is corny and I shouldn't do that. And,
Right.
people are going to think no, self-care is so personal. Don't judge it. Just make it a practice.
Right, and that's a normal phase of the development. So if you could befriend the judge, maybe listening to the judge and then seeing that there's a voice that comes up and deciding if that helps you or if it hurts you. For me, in the end, it's a question of, is that working for you or if it's not? And if the judgmental voice is allowing you to expand, then listen to judge. Sometimes we need the judgmental voice. If there's a fire going on, you're not going to run towards the fire. That's the judgmental voice serving you. But if the judgmental voice is being your critic and is like kind of pounding you down and saying, oh, this is not possible and you're not going to get anything on that, and then you feel shut down in the end, your body feeling of shutting down is your intuition saying that's not a voice. That's going to support you. When you're supported, you feel open and free, and your body position can change. That's another self-reflection you can do. Are you feeling open and free, or is your body, like I've noticed myself at the beginning of this, I was like in this position to the point where I got a pain over here, and I was on the kitchen table at sometimes like this. And I take yoga once a week via Zoom, and the whole process has been this, as odd as this may be, but it works like crazy. The space between my shoulder blades and the skin between them gets stretched and pulled back. And when that happens integrally, all other things begin to happen. Your posture has to shift backwards. You stand up straight. What happens after that? This opens up, your air gets to free flow. Your lungs become more full. When your lungs are more full, you have more oxygen in your body. When you have more oxygen in your body, you feel better. When that happens, your eyes open up wider, la, 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 la. It just goes on and on and on. And so the movement of, instead of having this hunchback to like a centimeter between my two shoulder blades has changed my world. And I don't do it all the time. It doesn't work all the time, but it's been my practice of adding one more thing of understanding that it hits me maybe when I'm, leaning over the table that I have to slightly move it differently. Or when I'm in the garden, getting back to the garden, I use a different posture. And all of those smaller movements open up possibility and invigorate. For me, it's been invigorating because I feel like through that yoga process, it's charging batteries that were depleted in certain sections of my body that led to pain that shut me down. And so if I tend to them and agree to do something differently, I recharge those batteries. I re-energize that section. The explanation of this can seem abstract. It's so subtle, but the feeling of energized invigoration that comes, it just it blows me away that those little differences wake me up and say, get back into it.
Last week, I believe it was Wednesday, we had a woman named Nina Heller on, and she, in my opinion, accesses our spirit through our physicality. And she actually shared something similar and said, do a body check, scan your body and see where the tension is. Because, and she didn't talk about, the different chi, but the tighter we get, the more we do reduce energy that's flowing into creativity or problem solving or anything else. Our psyche is connected to our physicality. So that's, we all need to be more aware of that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. The feeling of the body, befriending like the messages of the body, and there's books on that too, messages of the body. It'll inform you and connect to the intuition also. It's like the brother of intuition or the sister of intuition.
Let's go there for a second. I love the word and I trust my intuition. I've learned to trust it. And we often hear, there's a course that I teach called Career Visioning. And in that Gary Keller has taught us, don't trust your gut. In his opinion, when he says that, he's saying, when you trust your gut, G-U-T, you give up thinking. And so I just want, because there are Keller Williams people here, I just want to connect this dot. Always, always, always trust your gut when it tells you to go away from something. It's there to protect us, right?
Okay.
Specifically in business, if if your gut says this is not a good fit, this person is not a good fit, don't try to cram it in because they have the right resume.
Right. Beautiful. So you've seen the finer points of intuition.
Right. And the other side, when it says, oh my gosh, I love this person, just be aware that most of us are lovers of people, otherwise we wouldn't have gotten into real estate. So,
yeah,
right, I love all people, and yet they're not all necessarily a fit for my business. So that's where we have to trigger the thinking.
Sure.
Go into a process and verify the good stuff your intuition is telling you. Verify.
Absolutely. I put that in the category of distinctions. You know, I love the word distinctions, which means differences, right? And so there are finer points to this, is another word or expression, finer points. Yeah. So what happens is if developing your gut and not trusting your gut or intuition or not, I mean, it's the language that you have with yourself. But what you said, which is really important, is you forget your thinking. I'm never saying forget your thinking. For me, I'm going to stand up to show you this, but there are 3 spheres that we have. It's here, head thinking. It's here, heart. And then it's here, your hips. And the reason why I give you those 3 is you do your self-check and figure out, scan yourself. Are you coming more from your head, more from your heart, more from your hips? And hips to me, by the way, means those areas where you get up. You know, you need your legs and hips to get up and move a chair, a piece of furniture. That's your get up and go action in life every day. And if you're sitting down in a chair, you're not getting up. So how much did you sit in a chair today? When I sit in a chair too much, my body speaks to me right away. It says, go for a walk or do something.
Absolutely.
So the scan is to say, am I balanced in these 3? Or maybe in one situation, you need your mind more than your heart or your hips. So what your person is referencing is, don't shut that down altogether, because this is the guidance system that you need very fully and truly. And sometimes 100%, but other times it'll integrate. It's like, are you making your decisions only from your head, or are you integrating your heart in your decision, and you're going to get up and do something about it?
Well, and we all have a bias of one of those 3, right?
Totally.
We all have one that is typically controlling us. And I think what you're talking about a lot is just bringing a level of awareness to all of it, observing all of it.
Exactly. Yeah. And as a little takeaway today, I'd ask everybody who's watching to say, do two people, watch somebody you choose and you scan where they come from most often, and then do it for yourself after. Who am I?
Yep.
I see myself as a head person, and I've had other people tell me, you know, you're just like, your ideas are going, your head's going. When I'm alone and quiet, like the sensitivity of my heart is that beautiful place that informs me, and I don't show it to the world right away. But I'm telling you, that's the place that powers my whole, you know, reason for being and wanting. And my job then is to maybe make more decisions from the head, and then get up with my hips and do it. You know, so what I just ask people to look where they come from in their natural state of being, personality, whatever has brought them to this place in their life, and where they come from, and just, there's no judgment on it. It's like, where do you naturally go, and what are you using in certain situations more than others? If you're doing a real estate transaction and you're between counters and all of that, it's like, well, what part is what's happening? Are you getting up and going and meeting an agent, or are you sitting there and figuring out a strategy? Are you, you know, saying, you know, my buyer just loves this house, and, you know, she's been 15 offers, blah, 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 but we're going to write a letter and show that this, I mean, where is this coming? Where's the energy coming?
Interesting thing. I just saw some body language shift with other people. When you get clear on this, and it's so simple, it's much more simple than doing a whole behavior assessment or even the DISC. When you know if somebody's coming from their head, their heart, or their hips, meet them there.
Meet them where they're at and speak their language. It's going to give you
the best way to negotiate conflict if you meet them where they're at. You cannot convince a heart-led person with logic.
Oh my God. And reflect on yours too, because if you're all touchy-feely all the time, and you got not to say that all engineers are head people, because they're not, but if you have an engineer guy in front of you or woman, and they're, you know, needing to see the nuts and bolts of the purchase, well, then speak to them in the nuts and bolts language. That means you have to be an interpreter. Yeah. And that means you have to speak to them using their language. And it may mean that you need to learn a new language sometime as best you can in that on the spot moment. And, you know, because their job, they can't take on your touchy-feeliness. If I'm too touchy-feely, you know, at that moment, I mean, this guy's he's got to transfer to, you know, Schenectady in 2 months, and he wants a house in Schenectady, and he's got to sell his house in downtown San Diego, and, you know, you just got to make it happen.
Yeah.
And so your job is not to talk about the decoration of the house. Your job is to, you know, get the deal done. You know, and yeah, beautiful, you know. So, you know, we're spiritual gurus, we're psychologists, we're all of that in real estate, and planting flowers in the front lawn when you want to make the house look a little nicer.
And burying St. Joseph.
Burying St. Joseph, exactly. Yeah. So, you know.
So let's look out. I think in our part of the world, California and Mexico, we're probably going to experience another at least 3 weeks of fairly shut, stay, whereas other places are already opening. When you're in your quiet moments, what do you see for the planet as this pause comes to an end? What do you see happening?
So, you know, it's been an imposition of this recalibration. What I see is, you know, not to sound woo-woo, but it's like a new paradigm. It's a new paradigm. And to be honest with you, we're always going through new paradigms. So what does that mean if you have a new paradigm? It means that, you know, it's just simple. We're being asked to do stuff differently. And so so what does your person listening need? It's like whatever gifts you've had on hold that you've wanted to bring to the table, now's the time. Like right now. So don't deny yourself all those spaces in your being that you never explored before, that we're asking you to please allow them to show up. And I hope I'm not being too abstract there, but like if you've noticed your gifts and your strengths are, I'm a marketing person, fantastic, or I'm a people person, fantastic, or I can crunch the numbers, fantastic. But what else has been in the background that's been calling at you to try, that you already have, that you just haven't allowed space and time to show up? And then bring that to the table, try it out, see what benefits come, and you'll know. You'll have to dance with that, right? Because it's something new. And when you see the benefits that come from that, then all of the stuff that you've been doing gets to, like your standard responses, get to take a little break and relax and go on vacation, and the new gift comes up and gets front stage.
Something you just
when that happens, it brings you a whole new market, a whole new benefit, a whole new group of people that you knew you needed, you didn't know how to get to, but finally it's showing up.
So we're close to 60 days in, right? And I think everybody here that's watching can testify to the fact that your daily routine is nothing like it was 60 days ago, 50 days ago.
Right.
And yet whatever you're now doing is probably somewhat habitual. Good or bad, intentional or not, we have now developed new habits. And it just struck me when you were saying that it's only been 60 days.
Right.
And we have a book Gary Keller wrote called The One Thing. It says it takes 66 days. Not in a lot of cases. There are things I just realized I'm doing habitually already that I just started mid-March. So if I choose today new habits, new practices. Intentionally, if I choose it, oh my gosh, what June can look like. And when we're out of this, we get to take, if we choose, those new habits with us and continue them on.
So then they get to ask themselves, create the question, write your own question. Like, what is most powerful for me to begin now is the question.
And tap in maybe to those gifts that you've kept in reserve.
Exactly.
I love that because we all have them. And, I know in a lot of my gifts, you can't make a direct connection to value in the real estate world. So you just kind of quiet those, put them in the back. No, they're there for a reason. And thank you for saying that. Yeah.
Powerful questions. Ask yourself, make believe somebody's asking you the question. It's kind of, again, an abstract concept again, but what would my best mentor ask me to do? And then write your own question down there. Like, be your own mentor. Because if you can self-generate, then you don't always have to look for other people to, be powering you
I
up.
do it all the time, and I've asked coaching clients in the past, similar, what would Gary do if he was following you around all day? What would Diana say if she saw you on that appointment?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
What's the feedback you get from these people?
And befriend that, because that means you have to face your stuffs, you know. You know, what's been missing here in my life that I haven't addressed, you know, that's where it gets to what am I not doing that I should be doing, that I know my intuition is telling me to do, that will, you know, give me the answers that I want, you know. So this is the time that this pause in our existence and our lifespan, we're all going to live around 80 something years, hopefully, and or more. And it's like, we get to benefit from this pause. Probably, you know, nobody's ever had this before. So what are you going to, you know, get from it? You know, what's the benefit here? Because it won't ever happen.
I do think when I get woo-woo, I think, you know, the universe continues to give us lessons we need to learn. I believe that, God of the universe. And sometimes we get little lessons, you know, got to whisper in your ear and say, maybe you should look at this. And then you don't learn the lesson with that nice little gentle lesson. And so God gives you another big challenge to learn the same lesson. You don't learn it again. And right. And that's for me. And I think most humans, you see your patterns show up and you can look back and go, God, I didn't learn it then now I'm going to get it. I think in this pause, part of what I'm choosing to believe is all of the distractions had to be quieted so I could hear that voice. And maybe even in my reflection, look back and pick up the lessons that I missed because of all the distractions from the last 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I think that's really very astute and pinpointing what really needs to be addressed, you know. If you look,
you can only distract yourself so long.
Yeah, exactly. You know, look at how quiet. I mean, I don't know, people live in different areas, but I live in a big city that has 2 million people, and I'm next to a city that has, you know, in the whole county, what do we have in San Diego? Close to
3.5 million.
3.5 million. So between the two cities is, you know, close to 6 million people. Let's just say that it's quiet. What do you hear? What I hear, an ambulance. You know, a metaphor for address what needs to be addressed. Yeah. You know, in that with what was drowning out everything, now it's, you know, address that one thing that needs to be addressed, and spend attention on that. And that's, you know, powerful to me. It's like, you know, turn in and work on what's needed inside.
So let's say we've got another 2 or 3 weeks. What books would you suggest if we want to get on a more aligned spiritual path? For you, would have been some big helpful books.
You know, I'm going to recommend this. This is, what's the guy's name from Apple? I always forget his name for some reason.
Steve Jobs?
Yeah. You know, so one of the books that he gave, and I'm bad with celebrity names and popular names. At any rate, Autobiography of a Yogi is by Paramahansa Yogananda. It's very easy because it's just stories of his life. And Steve Jobs always had a stack of the book wherever he went, and he just passed them out to people. And I think at his funeral, he gave them out as well. Wow. And George Harrison, if you look at some of the covers of his albums, had Paramahansa Yogananda and the Gurus in lineage. So why do I offer that? Because there's wisdom from ancient cultures, and you know, Ashley, that, you know, my background in anthropology, you know, we can really gain from the wisdom of centuries. So the whole gift of yoga to the Western world doesn't only refer to putting your body in contortion poses. It's a unity of all existence with divine. And so you know, reading this book opens up kind of this fun historical journey back into this person's life, but it offers a wisdom of centuries through the practice of yoga that comes in a passive way. That's one that comes up on my radar right away.
Okay, great.
You can find it anywhere. It's in like 20-something languages. And
awesome. All right, what else should we know?
Oh, what should you know? That's
kind of an open question. What should you know? I mean, just, be attentive to what's calling to you right at this moment. Spend some time with it. Celebrate your wisdom that already is there, just waiting for you, to begin the thing that you need to begin today, and tend to it with, passion and compassion at the same time.
Love that. What can we do for you, Bruce?
I always like to hold people in the light. Like my job when I see other person is to know their strongest light. So you hold me in my strongest light, because we forget who we are, and we kind of can go off track. So just it's like passing on the good. Just pass on the good. So if you do it for somebody else, it already affects. If you're on the other side of the country, I'm in Mexico, I'm on board with California. If you're doing good for somebody else today, it affects me as the ripple.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Terry Barton said, you certainly speak her language. Yes, we are all very fairly connected, and I think on the same wavelength in this group. Do you anticipate getting back to doing your travel business? Oh,
sure. Yeah, it kind of, it's unavoidable.
Unavoidable?
Yeah.
Okay. I please keep me in the loop on that. I'm in.
Yeah, I do intensive self-care. People call them retreats. I never called it a retreat. I call it a getaway, but they become retreats. That's the language people know. To the middle of Mexico, to a spa resort. And so I'm going to start developing more and more of that. People just need intensive self-care. What that means is I build into the trip, massages, meditation, qigong, whatever is available, and it's not obliged. It's not mandatory. When you go, you meet yourself where you are, and you do the practices you need to do while you're there. In places that are kind of energetically charged, like I believe there are certain places on the planet that are really strong for transformation. And so this place I found, it's about an hour and a half south of Mexico City in Morelos, has this spa resort. It's very small, very organic, and just the whole atmosphere there, just being there, you can't help but, re-energize and recalibrate a little bit.
That sounds heavenly.
How do you stay grounded where you need to what?
Yeah, how do you stay grounded where you need to spend some time instead of keep reacting basically to what comes up?
Does that make sense?
I'm not sure.
So basically what that is how you're saying about be in the moment, like listen to where you're at, and things come up, but it's so easy to not stay there long enough to get through that. I guess that's what Ashley was saying earlier, versus just keep, like it's coming, but then you just keep going instead of be still for that period of time.
Yeah, great question. That I put under the umbrella of duality, right? Duality means that you're trying to, go in, exterior circumstances are happening, you have to spend attention on. Is that what you mean by that?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, it's more, I guess, like, and you keep coming back to the same place because you never stay in it long enough. So it could, you know what I mean? It repeats itself if you don't get through it.
Yeah, I think that's just the nature of the duality, and that's the beauty of the practice, that you can go back to it. I don't know if I have an answer other than that for that you're always returning back to the practice somehow in your practice that you decide to take on, whether it's a meditation or tending to your garden or whatever. And so it's inevitable that other things that comes up, and it may ask you to return to the thing that you've worked on before. I don't know. I've listened to, Buddhist monks who have done this their entire lives. They're in their 80s, and that's their message. The message is that it just keeps, things just keep coming up, and you're called back to, continue your practice and meet the exterior thing at the same time.
I hope that addresses what you're asking, because
let me add one thing to that too. I think, and I've recently had this experience with something that I thought I had worked through literally 30 years ago, and it came up within the last 4 months, and I went, oh my gosh, I hadn't completely let go of that. And I realized, well, until I die, that is still going to be some small part of me.
Sure.
What I want to do is diminish that control or that issue, work on it so that the negative impact of it is diminished, but it's never going to fully, completely go away, just as I am not ever going to fully, completely arrive and be fixed or be, right? It's a process. It's what this like.
Yeah. And I'm what I'm zoning in on right here is honing in on is there's like a need behind the question, and maybe that's not what I'm grasping at enough. Like I need to have more kind of a conversation to understand what's going on behind the question, and maybe address it from that. But
I think Ashley, what you said is true. Like it's like unpeeling the onion, right? We have different layers, and so each time we come back to it, we get to choose to go deeper or not. Or so I think you answered the question.
And I'd actually push you back to David Hawkins and the map of consciousness. You don't have to get to enlightenment, but if you're at grief, you can get to courage. So just keep traveling up that pyramid.
Yeah, it has to be organic. It can't be like one day you plant the seed and the next day you want the fruit.
Yeah.
There's time between the two.
We want instant gratification, but this thing of becoming more human isn't instant. It just isn't. Any other questions or comments? Val, I saw there you've got it on your bucket list. You want to do that trip also? Yeah.
Do it. Whenever your journey for it began today, if it's on your bucket list.
Judy John says she loves out there convos. Well, we have lots of them, Judy.
Coming to a theater near you.
Yeah. All right, sir. Well, thank you.
Oh, it's been an honor.
And truly, move your head just a little bit. For those of you who weren't on here, he painted that.
Oh, yeah. That
is just gorgeous.
And then it was a fun experiment, and it's actually kind of big. It's like a meter wide, like 3 or 4 feet wide. But it was, I needed a creative moment like a year and a half ago, and that's what was born. And then everybody said, "Oh, you travel the world. It looks like the Earth." And I'm like, "Oh, that's staying there." Gorgeous. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Tomorrow we are back here, and I'll tell you because I would love for you to come back tomorrow and be an observer. Tomorrow's guest is a woman named Gina Tefano, and she's a Keller Williams agent. And if anybody knows her, she had COVID and she was actually in ICU, and she's going to share that story because it was a really, she got through it obviously, and she's home and getting healthier now. But the last couple months, from our perspective of being locked in at home, have nothing compared to what she actually went through getting through this illness. So, and she's just inspiring anyway.
Well, thank you very much for what you're doing. It's changing the whole paradigm as well. Yeah. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. We'll talk soon.
Take
Everybody
care.
have
Bye,
a great
everyone.
Monday.
Have a great day.